Ma'am, step away from the vehicle for me.
I'm just unloading groceries. I live right here.
I've had complaints about someone hanging around this street.
Hanging around? I just got home from the store.
All right, I need to see some ID.
I don't believe I'm required to...
Hands where I can see them. Don't make this harder than it needs to be.
Officer Martinez had no idea what he just walked into. In the next 8 minutes, he would break federal rules. He would create a national security problem, and he would lose his job and cost his company over $25 million. The man he just put in handcuffs was General Marcus Hayes. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That means he was the highest-ranking military officer in the entire United States. General Hayes had served 34 years in the military. He advised 3 presidents on national security. He had clearance to see the nation's most secret information. He needed to be at the Pentagon for a classified meeting in less than 20 minutes. He walked through that same entrance every single morning for 2 years. Every real Pentagon security officer knew who he was, and the building's 1,400 cameras were recording everything. Before I continue, let me ask you this. Have you ever been judged unfairly because of how you look? Drop your answer in the comments. But Officer Martinez had no idea who he was handcuffing. General Marcus Hayes was 56 years old. He was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That's the highest-ranking military officer in America. He served 34 years in the military. He graduated from West Point in the top 5% of his class. He served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. He earned the Bronze Star and the Defense Distinguished Service Medal. He went from platoon leader to 4-star general. His job was to advise the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the National Security Council. Every morning he arrived at the Pentagon at 6:15. He used the East Executive entrance. Only cleared personnel could use that entrance. He had the highest security clearance possible. That's called Top Secret SCI. It gave him access to the nation's most sensitive intelligence. He was married for 28 years. He had 3 kids. People who worked with him said he was calm and professional. That morning, he was scheduled for a 6:30 classified briefing. It was about an emerging crisis in the Middle East. He was just trying to get to work, the same way he had for 731 days in a row. Officer Robert Martinez had a different kind of record. He was 38 years old. He worked for Sentinel Security Solutions. That's a private security company. The Pentagon hired them 8 months before this happened. Martinez worked security at the Pentagon's outside perimeter. In those 8 months, Martinez filed 47 suspicious person reports. Want to know something shocking? 43 of those reports were about people of color. That's over 91%. And 0 of them were actual security threats. Let me tell you about his past incidents. In May 2023, he stopped a black congressman. He held him for 20 minutes. He demanded real ID even though the congressman showed valid credentials. In July 2023, he stopped a Latino DoD analyst 3 times in 1 week. Martinez said he didn't remember faces. In September 2023, he questioned a black female admiral. He asked if she really worked at the Pentagon. He wanted her supervisor's contact information. People filed 12 formal complaints about Martinez in just 8 months. Sentinel dismissed all of them. They called them procedural misunderstandings. The Pentagon military police flagged Martinez twice. They said he was too aggressive and had pattern recognition issues. Martinez only got 2 weeks of training. Real military security personnel get 8 weeks. He never learned how to recognize senior military officials. The actual Pentagon police called him the problem contractor. They avoided working his shifts. Before Sentinel, Martinez worked MAL security. He got fired for profiling complaints. He briefly worked as a local police officer. He resigned during an internal investigation. Type justice in the comments if you think this guy should never have been hired. It was Tuesday, October 17, 2023. The time was 6:14 in the morning. The location was the Pentagon East Executive entrance in Arlington, Virginia. This entrance was restricted access. Only senior military and civilian leaders could use it. It had biometric scanners and badge readers. It had cameras everywhere and reinforced checkpoints. Between 6 and 7 in the morning, 40 to 60 high-ranking officials came through. It was a cool October morning. The temperature was 54 degrees. It was overcast. The parking lot was half full. You could hear quiet conversations and footsteps on concrete. The security shift was changing. Military police were handing off to private contractors. That meant less coordination. Sergeant Paula Williams was actual Pentagon police. She was finishing her overnight shift. Martinez was taking over the checkpoint. 3 other officials were arriving too. A Navy admiral, a DoD deputy secretary, and an Air Force colonel. General Hayes arrived at 6:13. He drove his own car. It was an unmarked sedan. He parked in the designated senior officer lot. He wore a business suit. That was normal for the chairman. He carried a leather briefcase. His Pentagon ID badge hung on a lanyard around his neck. This was his routine, same entrance, same time every single day. He walked toward the entrance. His badge was visible. He nodded to an admiral he knew. Martinez stood at the checkpoint. He had replaced Sergeant Williams 3 minutes earlier. He hadn't received a briefing on shift procedures. Martinez saw Hayes coming. He stiffened. His hand moved toward his radio. Other officials passed through without any problem. They used the badge scanners. Hayes was heading to the same entrance. He reached for his badge reader. He had done this 731 times before, but Martinez stepped directly in front of the scanner. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button. Martinez demanded ID. Hayes explained he worked there and showed his badge. Martinez said it could be fake. He wanted government-issued photo ID. Hayes stayed calm. He said his Pentagon ID was real. It had biometric encoding. He could scan in. Martinez blocked the scanner. Hayes mentioned his meeting. Martinez said he didn't recognize Hayes. Hayes said he came through every morning. He really did have a meeting. Martinez said he'd been there 8 months and never seen Hayes. Hayes said maybe they worked different shifts. Martinez questioned what Hayes's actual business was at the Pentagon. Hayes said he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He had a classified briefing in 15 minutes. Martinez laughed. He said, "Sure you are, and I'm the president." Hayes tried to show more credentials. He pulled out a second DoD ID. Martinez knocked it out of his hand. Martinez said they were fake IDs. He told Hayes he was done. He said, "Put your hands behind your back." Hayes asked Martinez to call the command center. They could verify his identity. Martinez said Hayes didn't give him orders. He yelled, "Turn around now." Admiral Thompson was 20 feet away. He yelled, "Martinez, that's General Hayes. Stand down." An Air Force colonel pulled out his phone. He started recording. The DoD deputy secretary ran toward the building. He yelled to get the Pentagon police chief. Martinez grabbed Hayes's arm. He forced him against the wall. He put handcuffs on him. Hayes stayed controlled. He said, "This is a mistake, officer. I'm not resisting, but you need to verify my identity." Martinez said Hayes was under arrest. The charges were trespassing on federal property and possessing false identification. Sergeant Williams heard the noise. She ran back. She screamed, "Martinez, what are you doing?" Now here's what happened next. Sergeant Williams sprinted to Martinez. She was screaming his name. She yelled, "Release him now. That's General Hayes, the chairman." Martinez said he didn't care what Hayes claimed. Williams said she wasn't asking. She said, "Remove the cuffs or I'm calling it in as assault on a flag officer." The Pentagon police chief arrived. The deputy secretary had called him. His name was Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison. He saw Hayes in handcuffs. His face went white. He said, "Good God. General, I am so sorry." He removed the cuffs himself. He got on his radio. He said, "Code red security incident at East Executive." General Hayes rubbed his wrists. He was completely calm. He told Morrison to preserve all surveillance footage, every angle, time-stamped. He said he needed Martinez's name, badge number, employment records, and training files. Admiral Thompson spoke up. He said he yelled Hayes's identity 3 times. Martinez ignored him and continued the arrest. Air Force Colonel Chen said he had 4 minutes of video. Martinez knocked the general's credentials out of his hand. DoD Deputy Secretary Walsh said this was the 3rd time he saw Martinez stop people of color at this entrance. He should have reported it sooner. Martinez started to realize what happened. He saw Morrison saluting Hayes. Other officers arrived and saluted too. Martinez stammered. He said, "How was I supposed to know?" He wasn't in uniform. Morrison said the chairman doesn't wear uniform to classified civilian briefings. He said Martinez would know that if he'd attended training. The evidence was everywhere. 14 camera angles from the Pentagon security system. Facial recognition logged Hayes's arrival. The admiral's warnings were captured on audio. Colonel Chen's phone video would later go on social media. The badge reader log showed Hayes tried to scan. Martinez blocked him. Timestamps proved Hayes's daily routine. He had 731 scans between 6:13 and 6:16 every single morning. The Pentagon Command Center sent an investigation team. Hayes's briefing got delayed 45 minutes. The Secretary of Defense was personally told. The DoD Inspector General's office was notified. Sentinel Security's supervisor got called to the scene. Martinez tried to backtrack. He said, "I was just doing my job, following protocol." Williams said protocol is scanning badges, not racial profiling. Martinez said Hayes didn't show proper respect for security procedures. M. Orison said Hayes showed you 2 forms of federal ID. He told you his position. You chose not to believe him. By 6:28, only 14 minutes after the initial stop, Robert Martinez was being walked off Pentagon grounds. General Hayes was walking into the building he'd been blocked from entering. Let me know in the comments what you think should happen to Martinez. A formal investigation started immediately. The DoD Inspector General got involved. So did the FBI. This was federal assault on a military officer. The lead investigator was Special Agent Keisha Robinson. She worked for the FBI Civil Rights Division. They looked at Martinez's conduct. They looked at Sentinel's hiring practices. They looked at Pentagon oversight failures. At 11:00 that same morning, they reviewed the evidence. They met in a Pentagon conference room. They watched all 14 camera angles frame by frame. They pulled the badge reader logs. Hayes had 731 successful entries. Martinez had made 47 suspicious stops. They took statements from 7 witnesses, both military and civilian. They got Martinez's training records. Martinez's story fell apart fast. He claimed Hayes refused to show identification. The footage showed Hayes holding up his badge at 6:14 and 22 seconds. He tried the scanner at 6:14 and 55 seconds. He showed a second ID at 6:16 and 10 seconds. Martinez claimed Hayes became aggressive and threatening. The audio showed Hayes stayed calm the whole time. He never raised his voice. He used please and sir 4 times. Martinez claimed he'd never seen Hayes before. He said he had reason to suspect fake credentials, but the records told the truth. Hayes scanned in 19 times during Martinez's shifts. Martinez never filed reports about those times. Facial recognition verified Hayes 731 times. Sentinel Security's CEO arrived at the Pentagon. His name was Richard Thornton. At 2:30 he met with DoD officials. Martinez got suspended without pay. The company started an internal review. Thornton said they took these allegations extremely seriously. The Pentagon said your contract is under immediate review. The FBI made a preliminary finding. There was probable cause for a civil rights violation. That's under Federal Law 18 U.S.C. 242. It's called deprivation of rights under color of law. Pentagon police took action. Martinez was banned from all DoD facilities. His security clearance got suspended. By 5:00 that evening, official charges were filed. Federal assault on a military officer under military law. Civil rights violation under federal law. False imprisonment. Martinez reacted in stages. First he denied it. He said this is a misunderstanding. Then he got angry. He said I'm being made a scapegoat for doing my job. Then he got desperate. He hired a lawyer. He refused to talk to the media. General Hayes made a statement at 4:30. He spoke in the Pentagon briefing room. He said this incident reflects a problem bigger than one officer. He said I have the privilege of rank, resources, and witnesses. Most people of color subjected to this treatment do not. He said I want accountability, but more importantly I want reform. Hayes went to his rescheduled briefing. He stayed professional through the whole crisis. Pentagon staff supported him. The Joint Chiefs issued a statement backing Hayes. Sentinel Security started getting contract cancellation notices from other federal agencies. If you think this matters, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happened next. But by the time the FBI finished reviewing footage, someone uploaded Colonel Chen's video to Twitter. Within 3 hours, it had 8 million views. Robert Martinez's face was everywhere. At 12:47 that afternoon, Colonel Chen posted the video. His caption said, "Racist security guard arrests the chairman of the Joint Chiefs outside the Pentagon. This is America." By 1:15, it had 50,000 views. It was trending in Washington, D.C. By 2:30, it hit 500,000 views. Military influencers and veterans groups picked it up. By 3:45, it reached 2 million views. Pentagon racism was trending nationally. At 5:00, CNN sent out a breaking news alert. The video was on every major news network. By midnight, it exploded. 12.3 million views on Twitter, 8.7 million on TikTok, 5.2 million on Instagram. 15.1 million views across Facebook. Twitter had 89,000 retweets and 450,000 comments. On TikTok, 3,400 people made response videos. A hashtag called Martinez is racist got 24 million views. On Reddit, it became the top post on 3 major forums. Combined, they got 890,000 upvotes. People were outraged. One veterans group tweeted 34 years of service to this country, and this is how he's treated at his own workplace. A civil rights group said if this happens to a 4-star general, imagine what happens to black Americans without his rank. A military spouse account said my husband served under General Hayes. This man is a hero. Martinez deserves everything coming to him. One TikTok video got 4.2 million views. A former service member Brock. He downed Hayes' accomplishments. He ended with, and this rent, a cop treated him like a criminal. Every DC news station led with the story that night. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News all covered it. That's rare agreement on outrage. The Washington Post put it on the front page. The New York Times wrote an analysis piece about race and the military. Even international outlets covered it. BBC and Al Jazeera ran stories about American racism reaching the Pentagon. Comment below what you think about how fast this spread. 3 days later, Sentinel Security lost $380 million in federal contracts, but that was just the start. The U.S. Attorney's Office filed federal charges on November 3rd. That was 17 days after the incident. Martinez faced 3 federal counts: assault on a military officer, civil rights violation, false imprisonment. Martinez said he was not guilty. They scheduled a trial. General Hayes filed a civil lawsuit on November 15th. It was against Sentinel Security and Robert Martinez. The lawsuit was in U.S. District Court. The claims were civil rights violation, assault, battery, false imprisonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Hayes asked for $25 million in damages. During discovery, more came out. They looked at Martinez's 47 suspicious person reports. 43 involved people of color. That's 91.5%. Internal Sentinel emails showed something bad. Supervisors ignored 12 formal complaints about Martinez. They found Martinez's past employment records. He got fired from Mal Security in 2019 for racial profiling. He quit the local police during an internal investigation in 2021. Sentinel's hiring practices were terrible. They did no psychological screening. They only gave 2 weeks training. The industry standard is 8 to 12 weeks. They failed to check references from his previous security jobs, and here's the worst part. Martinez was one of 37 Sentinel guards with similar complaint histories. The company kept all of them. In March 2024, Martinez accepted a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to 2 charges: misdemeanor civil rights violation and assault. He got sentenced to 6 months in federal prison, 2 years supervised release, a $5,000 fine. He was permanently banned from federal employment or security work. He had to complete anti-bias training as community service. The civil case settled in April 2024. They used mediation to avoid trial. Wait until you hear the final amount. Sentinel paid $18.5 million to General Hayes. Martinez was personally liable for $500,000. His future wages would be garnished. Attorney fees were $2.3 million. Total was $21.3 million, but there was more. The Pentagon ended all of Sentinel's contracts immediately. Those were worth $180 million. Other federal agencies followed. That was $200 million more in lost contracts. The company had to do court-ordered reforms for 5 years. Martinez faced social consequences too. He was banned from the Pentagon and all DoD facilities for life. He couldn't apply to any federal law enforcement job. He couldn't work in private security. Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. revoked his licenses. He moved out of the D.C. area. People recognized him everywhere. At Sentinel, the CEO resigned in April 2024. They fired or reassigned 15 senior managers. The company lost 40% of contracts across all sectors, not just federal ones. Stock value dropped 67%. Martinez tried to apologize after sentencing. He said, "I recognize my actions were wrong. I let my biases affect my judgment." People rejected it as fake. He only said it after he got sentenced. General Hayes didn't respond publicly. At the settlement press conference, Hayes made a statement. He said this outcome represents accountability, but accountability is not the same as justice. Justice would be a system where this never happens, where rank and resources aren't required to prove your humanity. The $21 million would go to organizations fighting racial bias in law enforcement. It would support service members of color. Hayes said, "I don't want revenge, I want reform." In May 2024, General Hayes testified before Congress. It was the House Armed Services Committee. The hearing was about discrimination in military security. Hayes was invited to talk about what happened. He started by saying, "For 34 years I've worn this nation's uniform. I've served in combat zones where the uniform was supposed to protect me. But that morning in a business suit outside my own workplace, I became just another black man who didn't belong. The handcuffs hurt. The violation hurt more. For 3 minutes I stood against that wall wondering something. Did my decades of service matter? Did my rank matter? Did my oath matter? Or did none of it matter at all?" He talked about the emotional impact. He said, "My family watched that video. My grandchildren asked why the police officer was hurting me. Then he used his professional knowledge. He said, I have rank, I have resources, I had witnesses. I had 14 cameras recording every second. The average service member doesn't have those protections. The young black lieutenant, the Latino staff sergeant, the Asian American analyst. This happens to them and nobody films it. Nobody investigates. Nobody believes them." He had a message for service members. If you face discrimination, report it, document it. You have rights. Your service matters. You deserve dignity. He had a message for security contractors. Bias isn't just wrong, it's a national security threat. When you profile based on skin color, you miss actual threats. He said, "What needs to change? Mandatory bias training isn't enough. We need accountability. Private security contracts should require the same standards as military police, and we need to believe people of color when they report discrimination. The first time, not after it goes viral." He thanked people. Admiral Thompson, who spoke up, Colonel Chen, who recorded, Sergeant Williams, who stepped in, everyone who demanded accountability. His final words were powerful. "I didn't serve 34 years defending this country to be treated like a threat to it. No one should, not in uniform, not out of it, not ever." Hayes' testimony led to immediate policy changes, but his case showed a bigger problem. Between 2020 and 2023, the DoD got 1,847 complaints of racial discrimination at military bases. 67% involved private security contractors. Only 3% resulted in punishment. A Military Times survey from 2023 found something shocking. 52% of black service members said they experienced racial discrimination in the previous year. That was the highest in 15 years. This isn't about one bad guard, it's about a broken system. So let me ask you, do we really believe that a man who served this country for 34 years should have to prove he belongs? Do we think it's okay that private security companies can hire guards with histories of racial bias, give them 2 weeks of training, and then say oops when someone gets hurt? And do we honestly think this was just one incident? Or is it happening to countless others who don't have cameras, witnesses, or the rank to fight back? Because if we don't demand better training, if we don't create real accountability, then we're just waiting for the next Robert Martinez, the next humiliated service member, the next $25 million lawsuit that could have been stopped. Comment below if you believe private security contractors should be held to the same standards as police. If you think stories like this matter, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these stories. We're going to keep demanding better. This isn't just about one racist security guard or one decorated general. It's about all of us. See you in the next one.